Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 16 of season 2 of the Rock for Him podcast. I'm Jeremy Brown, your host, and with me is Scott Mullins. How's it going, Scott?
It's going great. I'm so excited to be in the presence of such an icon
Right?
in the Christian rock community. This has been a long time coming. I'm just so excited to get it rolling.
It really is. Well, let's go ahead and introduce her. You may know her as Mothership. This is Cindy Blankenship. She's a podcast host. She's uh, there's multiple things she does.
I do things.
Yeah, she's the host of the Grizzly Awards, and yeah. So welcome to the show, Cindy.
Thank you. I'm humbled to be here. I'm like, your viewership just dropped.
I doubt that. I definitely
No.
doubt that.
No. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh gosh. How far back are we going to go? All right, let's just start with what I do right now. I am a booker for Loud and Proud Festival in Germany. They found out that I had connections with a lot of artists, so they asked if I would come on board and help be an English liaison. I also do speak some German, of course, from my background, my history. I have a cousin who lives in Frankfurt, so I know just enough German to get in trouble. And I've learned a lot more since I've been working with them. I am a co-founder of the Grizzly Awards. Actually, it was kind of conceived in Germany as well. I was at the catering at the Loud and Proud Festival when some of the artists were talking about the lack of recognition of rock and metal artists and in the award shows. And then Justin Forshaw mentioned it when he came back to the U.S. in on Facebook, and I jumped in the conversation, and Mary Nickel did too. And the next thing you know, we have the Grizzly Awards. Lee from Solid Rock Radio had contacted me also and said, "Hey, you want to do a radio show?" And I'm like, "I can't do a radio show. I don't know anything about it. I can't. I stumble over my words. I don't, I'm like a Moses. I can't do it, And so he coached me and I figured it out. And now I do my podcast show, my radio show, and then it turns into a podcast. And so that, and then I do catering and ministering to bands, either in the venues, on the road, or here at the house, as they need it. Just support and promote.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, that's awesome. We love that you do that, and it is inspiring, at least to us as kind of new to the podcast realm. And I've been listening to your show for a few years now and watching the Grizzlies, and just
Me too, yep.
so much appreciation for what you do for the community of the Christian rock and metal genre.
Thank you.
And we've got a lot of questions to ask, and it's hard to know where to start, but what we always do is each and every guest that we do have on our podcast, we feel it's important for our ministry to let people know about your Christian faith. And if you wouldn't mind just taking a few minutes to tell us your testimony or your story as how you became a Christian.
Okay. Well, I was a teen when I made my profession of faith and accepted Christ. We had gone to churches when we were younger. I don't remember a lot. We did have a Christian background, but there were some years in there where we weren't attending church, and I felt very lost. And just remember when we had a youth minister from a church come to our apartment complex, and he asked me if I died, if I would go to heaven. And my sister had just become a Christian, and she asked me the same thing. I thought, you're not supposed to know. It's supposed to just kind of happen. If you're good, if you're bad, the whole thing that most of us believed. And they explained to me the plan of salvation. And I was about 15, I believe I was at that time. And I knew that I was kind of mad because I really didn't want to make that decision. I was like, don't tell me that. But then I did. I made that decision, became a believer at about 15. And haven't stopped since. I mean,
Awesome.
it's just been grow. I've changed a lot. I've learned a lot. You know, some of the things I used to do, I kind of cringe now thinking,
Yep.
you know, but you know, you grow and learn and then you minister to people, and it's been great. My husband started out in the grocery business, but God had called him into the ministry many years before that, and he kind of just ignored it. And we ended up going into full-time minister. He was a minister of music, and also sometimes he would do youth, depending on the church. And so we've done that for many, many years, taking kids to a lot of concerts and different things kind of sparked some of this. And now he's kind of retired from full-time ministry, especially after the COVID thing. But he's all in with the mothership thing and ministering to bands. He's really enjoyed it. And we see that it's something that God's calling us to do together.
Awesome.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe to piggyback on that, then, so when did your love for the music begin? Has it always kind of been there, or was it something that as you progressed through your journey, or was your husband, it sounded like he might have been a small influence, or did you guys kind of grow together in that? Or maybe explain a little bit of that real quick.
Okay. Well, it's all over the board because I grew up on Led Zeppelin and Boston and, you know, all the rock and roll things. My brother was a drummer. I've always had a thing for drums. I love them because we used to listen to him play all the time. So we did all that. And then when I became a Christian, I kind of thought, well, I have to switch over to Christian music. And so I was listening to, you know, Stephen Curtis Chapman and all this and Petra and all these things as I kind of changed over and pretty much exclusively listened to Christian music. But as I began to find, like, you know, when Audio Adrenaline came out and Newsboys, old Newsboys stuff came out, I started really loving it. But I have always had I remember my grandfather giving me a transistor radio when I was about 6 or 7. And I carried that thing with me everywhere. Music has always touched my soul and my spirit more than anything. And it's been sort of like I describe it as be like medicine to people, you know. And I just seemed to be more moved by heavier music, but I didn't know about a lot of the heavier music in the 80s and 90s, and I began to find them. And then I think probably my gateway drug was Skillet and Demon Hunter. Once I started getting into all of that, I started discovering all these other bands, and I began to really, really resonate with Red and all these different, you know, Disciple, Decipher Down, and that kind of became my love because maybe it reminded me more of the era that I grew up and the type of music that I really loved, the driving drums and rock and electric guitars, and I just have always loved that, and it speaks to me.
Awesome. So, who has been your favorite guest that you've had on your podcast?
Gosh, that's hard. Don't you ask me that question because I know them all. There's not a favorite. There are some people that I know, you know, this is that they're easier to interview. They, you know, either for one reason or another, that because I know them really, really, really well, or because they are used to doing this and that you don't have to, you know, they can interview themselves. They don't even need me, which is a good thing because I'm not very good at it. But I guess I've always loved people like my friends like TJ Harris and gosh, let's see. I enjoyed having Lacey Sturm on because there are some people that I've known, but I didn't get to know them real well until I interviewed them. And like Jeremy Schaefer from Earth Groans, I've known him for years, but that's the first time we actually sat down and talked was when we just did their recent interview. There's gosh, so many people. I love the Protest. I had a great time with John Cooper because we've known each other. I mean, he was kind of like the beginning thing for me. You know, we fell in love with, you know, the Comatose and the Collide era music, and that's part of our testimony. But getting to see him and sit down with him and talk, because he doesn't sit still very often at a venue. I've known him for years, but just to get him to sit down and talk to you, you don't have time for that usually at a venue. So that was kind of nice. And gosh, there's so many. I've interviewed a lot of people. I think I've got like 100 now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then and there are some repeats in there because, new albums come out and stuff. Having Kevin Young on, that was kind of fun because, again, he's another one that doesn't sit still very long at a venue to talk to.
I think you could say that about most of the lead singers.
Yeah, they're kind of busy.
And
all
I
of them are busy.
I liked how you answered the question, because I was just thinking as you were rattling all that off, I was thinking to myself, just in our short time of podcasting, it would be hard to narrow down. I mean, there are
it's impossible. John Schlitt has been a friend for a long time. Getting him on for Petra,
that would be awesome.
Yeah, he's a nice. I mean, but see, I've hung out with him in catering and stuff, and in Germany, we had him in Germany. So I've known him for a long time, and I've also hosted quite a few of his shows and done catering for his like personal shows and stuff. So there's people that I know really, really well. It's sort of just an extension of and that's what I kind of like to do, is just talk like y'all are like a fly on the wall, listening to our conversation like we would just normally have together.
Right.
And it's just an extension of, hey, I hadn't talked to you in a long time. Let's catch up.
Well, I personally enjoy the show, like mentioned earlier. So
I do too.
Even though you keep saying it's not hyping it up. It's if you're out there watching this podcast, make sure you check out Cindy's if you haven't, because she does an awesome job, and the artist that she's interviewed, she probably just named off the top 5 in the category. So go check those out. But one thing, of course, you knew had to be coming up, maybe for some who don't know, you have mentioned the catering. I know you've had some people stay with you, and maybe kind of tell us how you became the mothership, or how that was giving you the title of that.
How much time do I have?
We got all the time you want. So,
okay. I'll hit some highlights, because you know how you're, especially when you're old like me, little things like add up over the years that have influenced it. That it's not like it just started overnight. Started probably, I would say, when I used to be the manager of a Christian bookstore. And, back in the day, we'd go to the Christian booksellers conventions and meet the artists. I actually saw the premiere of This Means War with Petra.
wow.
Back in the 80s. I think it was the 80s. And so I was used to being around artists, and, we used to sell tickets in the Christian bookstores before computers and all that stuff. And I used to go, and I would occasionally do some merch for them or something like that, So I kind of got a little bit of a taste of it then. And then in the youth ministry, when we started going to youth events, I started hearing some of the bands live, and then my love for live music kind of started there. But I think it started around the time that my kids were enjoying Skillet. And I'm going to make this as short as I can. Eventually, both my children are artists. Eventually, my daughter was asked by Ben Cassica to draw some cartoons for the podcast, the Monster Remix podcast. And so the Monster Remix podcast has little cartoons of each member of the band that we were at. Ben asked her to draw, particular type of clothing and all, everything was to his specifications. Anyway, it ended up, we became friends with Skillet. And we began to get taken backstage to show them the newest Skillet drawings, because she would draw a Skillet. And that ended up catapulting her to, she's now the manager of an art department of a company for sports, like uniforms and doing logos and mascots and things like that. So we've kept in touch with Ben over the years, every time she had a milestone, because we felt like, here's this band guy that got her started in art, and look where it's taken her, and the mentoring that they did with her, the whole band eventually, changed her direction of her life. And that's one of those things that was an aha moment for me. So I saw that.
Awesome.
And then she started taking little gift bags with things to give to them. And so that was sort of like, I love you gifts. So that kind of came into play. But I think probably when it really kind of went into gear was when I met Love and Death. I had taken my brother, who had some issues with abuse of drugs and alcohol, to see a show, and it had it was not Love and Death at the time. It was called Brian Head Welch Band, Decipher Down, The Letter Black, and I think The Wedding. What a great lineup.
Wow. No kidding.
Yeah, that is a great one.
So we went to this. I took my brother to see them, and he was not a believer. We'd been, talking to him for years about it, and he didn't want to give up his habits, And while we were there at this show, it just turned out that there was not a big turnout. So all the artists were kind of in merch. So Brian came into merch, and I, was not a Korn fan, so I didn't know much about him, but met him. And then my brother started talking to him. And at some point, Brian shared his testimony with my brother, and I looked over, and he and another guy were laying hands on my brother and praying with him.
Oh, man.
And there was a change in my brother's life from then on. He began to identify as a Christian and, still had some issues, still struggled. But I feel like that moment changed his life. I believe he was saved at that point. And he turned to me in the car on the way home and said, if Brian can do it, I can do it.
Oh,
Because, he
That's
heard his
awesome.
testimony. So I was like, wow, these bands, look what they're doing, So as I got to know, I started getting to know Love and Death because J.R. Barice, which was their 15-year-old guitar player at the time, for some reason we latched on, and we started talking, and we became friends, been friends on Facebook. I started getting friends with his mother on Facebook. And every time I would go to a Love and Death concert, he would bring me backstage, and I would hang out with Love and Death. Well, when you get pictures with Brian Head Welch, everybody's like, oh my gosh, she knows Brian Head Welch. So everybody wants to friend you. And it's sort of like this thing was going on the side too. People are like noticing that I know these people or whatever. And I'm like, it's no big deal. But at some point, I'm trying to speed it up. Sorry. It's so long. At some point, JR's mother on Facebook asked me when she was saying like they eat horrible things on, tour. And I was hearing the stories about how they're sleeping in Walmart parking lots in the van and not getting showers, and all this stuff. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to make them food when they come next time. So I told her I'm going to fix them a meal. And at some point she said, when they're in Georgia, you're his mothership. And I was like, oh. And then everybody in the comments were like, you need to own that because it's Blankenship and it's mothership and it's what a mothership means. And so I kind of jokingly just started using it, and it was just something personal for me. I would feed Love and Death, and then Icon for Hire would be there or some other band, and I would feed them too. And then the next time they came to town with three bands, I would feed those bands. And sometimes I couldn't get into the venue with food, so I just bring gift bags. And then I think it accelerated when Rockfest Records started having the Rockfest tours.
Yep.
And Lainey, who is the disciple mom, she did a little list of snacks and things that disciple liked. And I went, you know what? I'm going to do that for the rest of the bands. So I did ones for the rest of the bands. And I kind of did that for like 3 or 4 years. As they were every time they would tour, I would like have little pictures of all the things that they like to eat, and stuff. And then I would bring the food too. And so it became that became a thing. And then other people would be bringing snacks too, because I put the snack list up. So then the next level of craziness, we decided, my husband and I decided to go to Uprise Festival in Pennsylvania. Well, we live in Georgia, so that's a 10-hour drive. So I was real excited about getting to go see all these the rock stage, because we don't have anything like that down here. And a lot of people were saying, oh, I've known you for years, with all the snacks and stuff. We want to meet you. And I'm like, okay. So I told my son, who's also an artist, I need a shirt that has my name on it. It just says Mothership on it. And so he designed the I'm with Mothership shirt, or actually he designed this shirt with just Mothership on it. And then he put on the front, which was my request, the bands are with me. Instead of I'm with the band.
Love it.
Because I thought it was funny. And then he designed the I'm with Mothership because my husband says, I want a shirt too. And so he says, I want one that says I'm with Mothership because I want them to know I'm with you. So we did that. And the next thing you know, people were wanting to buy the shirt. And I'm like, I can't sell the shirt. I don't have a business. I'm not even making a salary. I'm just doing this for fun. This is like a private thing that I'm doing with these bands. And so I got this, another one of those things. Oh, they can donate money for the shirt, and any money extra that they want to give on top of how much it costs for the shirt, I can use to buy food for the bands.
Yep.
So that happened. And then I started getting messages from bands like in states like Ohio or Washington. Some lady just came in here with I'm with Mothership shirt, and she has gift bags and food and giving us like gas cards and stuff. And I'm like, God just, and I say this every time, God keeps opening doors. I keep stumbling through them. It's like, okay, if you want to use this, God, because, here I am. I just loved the bands, and I loved how they ministered to my family. And I loved how they are changing lives. Even if they just save a life, there's a chance for that life to change eternally at some point.
Yeah.
So to not bum out the vibe here, but I think it's important for you to know that was 2012 when my brother prayed to receive Christ with Brian Head Welch, and in 2015 my brother was murdered, and I know where he is, and that's because of Brian. And so as horrible as it was, there was some relief that I'll see him again. So
absolutely.
Wow, that's powerful, and thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
But the peace of knowing that you'll get to see him again one day is important, because if that wouldn't have happened, think of the alternative.
Exactly. So you can see how I love these people because they're like family to me.
Yeah.
And I know I'm just one person who's been touched by multiple bands in many different ways. And I think of all the other people that are out there that want to see them. And if they've got hot food, or if they've got something that encourages them, like snacks or whatever, or here's $10 extra for gas, or here, let's go to the restaurant before the show, or let's go to the restaurant after the show, or whatever, or y'all come by the house and I'll make you something, or whatever. I just feel like if I can do something that makes their life easier, or will edify them in some way, then I am in some way part of their ministry. And anybody that they save, or and I'm talking about save somebody's life, there's so many people taking their own lives like now, but anybody that they minister to, or save their life, or point them to Christ, I've had a part in that. And that's becomes part of my journey and my story too. And at my age, I'm like, you know what? I want to leave some sort of legacy behind, because nobody's gonna remember me, but they might remember that band and what the band did for them. So
that's great.
That is really great. So what has been your favorite concert? I know it's probably hard to pick, but and I know you go to the festivals and stuff, so maybe
there
what's
is
been your
no
favorite festival?
I'll tell you what festivals. I'll tell you what's my favorite. The one I'm at.
At the yeah.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
There's something cool about every one of them. The Loud and Proud Festival in Germany is fantastic. Uprise, KCF is amazing. Going down to the Masquerade in Atlanta, that's like a little hole in the wall. It's amazing. I've seen some amazing shows. The electricity went out, and Lacey Sturm did an acoustic set with no electricity in there, and that was like one of the most worshipful things I've ever been to. I was like, it's wherever I am that moment. It's holy.
It's funny because sometimes when we have artists on, we ask them if there's a certain favorite song or one that they like to write or what have you, and I would say the majority always say it's the next one I'm writing or the next one that's coming out. I'm so excited to see where God takes that, and so that kind of reminded me of your response there.
Yeah.
But we are burning up our time quickly, but I didn't want the podcast to go away before we get the banana pudding story as well.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe if we get a little history on that, I'm sure it ties in with some of the rest that you've been talking about. But
pudding, it's just pudding.
That's not what the rumor is.
Yeah, apparently it's supposed to be magical. It's magic. It is magically delicious. I don't know. I think part of it's because it's made because I love them. There's love in there. You have to mix a little love in it. But I know that most bands, when they get to a venue and they've got, quote, catering, it's going to be pizza that's very cold and probably some dry cookies. Okay, so I know that I refuse to buy pizza unless somebody specifically wants it. I mean, I did drive Dan Johnson when he was with Red to go pick up some pizza afterwards, but I will not bring pizza because it just seems like that's all they ever eat. But I think the dessert thing is lacking. It's very dry, and one of the things when I do catering, most of it's finger food. It's things they can just walk through and eat. And I do a lot of grapes and strawberries, and there's a lot of things like that, cheese and luncheon meats and things like that are, you can like put something together real quick. But I started doing the pudding one time because I thought I need something that's easy to fix, fast to fix. I can do it, and it's sugar-free, but it tastes like it's not sugar-free. And it's like a little, like, tastes like home, you know what I'm saying? And but it's not dry. It's like a regular dessert, And for some reason I just got a response from it. And then I have a few people that like fight about it, like I can, if you get either TJ Harris or Matt Baird from Spoken, and like one time I remember TJ just took a picture of the pudding and texted it to Matt without saying a thing. And Matt says, "Dang, you're in Georgia." So yeah. So it just, I don't know. You can put things on it, like Miggy from Relent likes to put gummy bears on top of his pudding. And then we have, cause he loves gummy bears. That's his favorite. And then sometimes like people throw strawberries on it, but it's just different. It's not as, dry, and it's just more fun. But, I remember one time we went to the, I won't say, maybe I shouldn't say, we went to the Rock Fest, one of the Rock Fest tours, the one that was in south of Nashville. I can't remember the name of the place. Anyway, but it was like 30, it was like all the bands from the Rock Fest tour, and like there were like 30 people in the bands, and my husband and I had just driven up from Georgia to Nashville, and I went in, and I had brought catering. I'd brought a bunch of barbecue and all kinds of stuff. I stopped at a barbecue. A friend of mine has a barbecue place, and I had him like put it all frozen and bring it all up and everything. And I said, "Well, what do we got for dessert?" And they said, this, and it was like one thing of bakery cookies. It was like 24 cookies or something like that. And I went, I told Dan, I says, "Get the keys. We're going to the store." And so they found a punch bowl at the church. This was at a church. They found a punch bowl, and then I went to the store and bought about, I don't know, 10 boxes of pudding and 40 bananas and, I don't know, several gallons of milk. Anyway, we had banana pudding, and it was all gone by the end of the night. So, but see, it's something I can mix. I'd use the instant, so it's something I can mix quickly and easily. And I have mixed it in hotel rooms before.
That's great.
Hey, whatever you got to do.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. I've made vegetable soup in hotel rooms before too. I've been doing a lot of vegetable soup because I can leave it in the crock pot and let it sit there, and keep stirring it. I like to stir the pot.
I like it.
That's good. That's good.
But yeah, it's just pudding, but it's just kind of taken on its own little life, and that's fine as long as as long as everybody enjoys it.
Right. So one of the things we like to do, and we're quickly running out of time, is we like to pray for you.
Cool.
We like to ask, if there's anything we can pray for.
Well, I always have physical barriers. I have injuries. I had scoliosis as a child and a teen, and had that quote fixed, but they fused you flat, so you have flat back syndrome, which pulls on your lower back. Anyway, I was rear-ended in 2014, and that's actually when I stopped working because I could not find a job after that. I ended up having to have another surgery to put a spacer in between another disc, and I still have chronic pain, and so I never went back to work. So this is why I've gone astray and gone into the ministry that I have, because I have to spend a lot of time in a recliner, and then I can't even sleep in a bed. It's just too much. So, but I have constant back pain and neck pain, and I've had a couple of surgeries, but I'm better from those. Had knee surgery, but yeah, constantly having some chronic pain issues, and I'm trying to go back to the gym and get moving again because I've got lots of concerts coming up.
All right, Scott, you want to go ahead and pray real quick?
Sure. Let's go to the Father. Awesome Father in heaven, thank you for just a wonderful night to get together and talk to Cindy and all the gifts that you've given her to use for your glory. And we just lift her up tonight. And she mentioned these back pains and neck pains. Just give her strength and take the pain away, and just help her to continue doing what she's doing for you and for the kingdom. We thank you for her ministry and podcast and things that she does for the bands. We also thank you for Rock for Him and the ministry you've allowed us to do. And we hope that everything we've done tonight has been honor and glorifying to you. We love you, and thank you so much for sending Jesus to die for our sins on the cross as Easter approaches quickly. That's really heavy on our minds and hearts. Just anyone who's out there, if they haven't made the decision to follow you, please let them make that as today. Yeah, we love you, and we ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Well, this sure has been an awesome time, Scott. I mean, it's always great to see you, and Cindy. It was great to finally get to talk to you face to face.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for even being interested. I'm like, no,
somebody
wants to interview me.
That's right. Love it.
Been an inspiration for what we do here, and like we just can't say thank you enough. And we loved having you on, and you're welcome back anytime. And yeah. So I just want to remind everybody that if you're gonna rock, make sure you rock for him, and check Cindy out. Her podcast is amazing. It's Backstage with Mothership. So everybody have a good night.
If you like what you saw today, hit the subscribe and like button down below, and don't forget to share it to all your friends. Also, leave us a comment down below. If you're gonna rock, rock for him.